The old man's hands trembled as he stared at the young woman standing in his doorway at 3 a.m. Her eyes, those impossible eyes, shifted from deep amber to pitch black in the dim light of his porch. Water dripped from her clothing onto his doorstep, but there had been no rain that night. "You should not have helped me, Abbas," she whispered, her voice carrying layers of sound, as if multiple people spoke at once. Now everything changes. Why did a simple act of kindness to a crying stranger transform into a 70-year-old widower's most terrifying and beautiful encounter? What did this mysterious woman reveal that made him question everything he believed about mercy, faith, and the invisible world around us? This story will shake you to your core and remind you why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should honor his guest, and whoever believes in Allah and the last day should be kind to his neighbor." Listen until the end, because what happened to Abbas al-Rashid will change how you see every stranger who crosses your path. Before I continue, please check if you're already subscribed to this channel and leave a comment telling me which country you're watching from. Your engagement helps these stories reach more people who need to hear them. Abbas al-Rashid was 70 years old and had been living alone in his small house on the outskirts of Lahore, Pakistan, for 3 years, ever since his beloved wife Khadija passed away from cancer. Their only son, Tariq, lived in Dubai with his family, visiting maybe twice a year when work permitted. The neighborhood knew Abbas as the kind uncle, the man who fed stray cats, who always had candy for children, who never missed Fajr prayer at the mosque, and who spent his pension money helping anyone who knocked on his door asking for food or medicine. "Abba, you're too generous," Tariq would scold him during their weekly phone calls. "You barely have enough for yourself. Stop giving everything away." But Abbas would just smile and quote the Quran. "Those who spend their wealth in the way of Allah are like a grain that sprouts 7 ears, and in every ear there are 100 grains." The truth was, giving to others was the only thing that made Abbas feel less alone. Every act of kindness was a way to honor Khadija's memory. She had been the most generous woman he'd ever known. His daily routine was simple. Wake for Fajr, tend his small garden of roses and jasmine, prepare simple meals, read Quran, pray 5 times, feed the neighborhood cats, and sleep early. A quiet, unremarkable life. Until that October evening when he heard the crying. It was just after Maghrib prayer. Abbas had finished his evening tea and was about to water his roses when he heard it. A woman's voice, sobbing desperately from somewhere near the old banyan tree at the corner of his street. The street was empty. Most families were inside having dinner. The streetlight near the tree flickered irregularly, casting dancing shadows that made Abbas hesitate. He should go inside. An old man had no business investigating strange sounds in the dark, but the crying continued, raw, heartbroken sobs that reminded him of how Khadija had cried when the doctors gave her the diagnosis. "Ya Allah, grant me courage," Abbas whispered, gripping his walking stick as he slowly made his way toward the sound. As he approached the banyan tree, he saw her, a young woman, perhaps in her mid-20s, sitting on the ground with her back against the massive trunk. Her dupatta covered her head, but he could see her shoulders shaking with each sob. Her clothes were soaked, water pooling around her, which was strange because it hadn't rained. "Betty, daughter," Abbas called softly, keeping a respectful distance. "Are you hurt? Do you need help?" The woman looked up, and even in the poor light, Abbas was struck by her beauty. Her eyes were an unusual amber color, luminous in the darkness. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't speak, just stared at him with such profound sadness that his heart ached. "Please let me help you," Abbas said. "Are you lost? Should I call someone for you?" Finally she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "No one can help me. I am beyond help." "No one is beyond Allah's mercy," Abbas replied automatically, the words his wife used to say whenever someone was in despair. The woman's eyes widened slightly at his words, and for just a moment Abbas thought he saw something flicker in them, a flash of light, like fire behind glass. "You believe that?" she asked. "Even for creatures like me?" Abbas frowned at the strange phrasing but nodded. "Allah's mercy encompasses all creation." The woman stood slowly, water continuing to drip from her clothes despite the dry evening. She was tall, unusually tall, and moved with an otherworldly grace that made Abbas suddenly uneasy. "Then perhaps," she said softly, "there is still hope. Old man, I need sanctuary for one night. Just one night. Will you show me this mercy you speak of?" Every instinct told Abbas to refuse. Something was wrong, the water, her eyes, the way she said, creatures like me. But he remembered another hadith. Whoever relieves a believer's distress of the distresses of this world, Allah will relieve his distress on the day of resurrection. You may stay in my guest room, Abbas heard himself say. Come. As she walked past him toward his house, he noticed she cast no shadow under the flickering streetlight. And that's when he knew this was no ordinary woman. Abbas's hands shook slightly as he unlocked his front door, his guest standing silently behind him. Inside, he turned on the lights and finally got a clear look at her. She was stunningly beautiful in an unsettling way, features too perfect, too symmetrical, like an artist's idealized sketch rather than a real person. Her amber eyes seemed to glow slightly in the warm light of his living room. Water still dripped from her dupatta, leaving a trail across his floor. Please sit, Abbas gestured to the sofa, then hurried to get towels from the bathroom. When he returned, she hadn't moved. She stood in the exact spot where he'd left her, staring at the wall where Abbas had hung a framed Ayat al-Kursi in beautiful calligraphy. Does this bother you? Abbas asked carefully, offering her the towel. She took it, but didn't use it. No, it comforts me. I haven't heard those words spoken with true faith in a very long time. Who are you? Abbas asked, his voice barely steady. She smiled sadly. My name is Safia, and you, generous old man, are Abbas al-Rashid, who has lived in this house for 43 years, whose wife planted those jasmine bushes you tend every morning, who feeds 13 cats, 12 strays, and one who actually belongs to your neighbor but prefers your kindness. Abbas's blood ran cold. How do you know? I know many things, Safia interrupted gently. I know you pray tahajjud 3 times a week even though your knees hurt. I know you send half your pension to an orphanage in Karachi that doesn't even know your name. I know you talk to your wife's photograph every night before sleeping. What are you? Abbas whispered, though he already suspected the answer. Safia looked directly at him, and her eyes shifted, from amber to a deep crimson, then back to amber. I am Jinn, one of Allah's creations, made from smokeless fire. And I came to this street tonight because I needed to know if mercy still exists in human hearts. Abbas should have run, should have screamed, should have recited every protective surah he knew. Instead, he found himself asking, why? Because, Safia said, her voice breaking, I am being hunted by my own kind. I committed a sin in the eyes of the Jinn Council, and the punishment is death. I have been running for 3 months, hiding, seeking refuge. Tonight I decided to test one final human. If you showed me kindness, I would believe that Allah's mercy might still cover even one like me. If you turned me away, I would stop running. She let those words hang in the air, the implication clear. She would have given up, surrendered to her fate. What sin could be so terrible? Abbas asked. I refused to harm a human child, Safia said simply. I was commanded by an elder jinn to possess a boy, a test of the child's family's faith. But when I saw the child's innocence, when I heard his mother's prayers, she closed her eyes. I could not do it. I refused, and for that refusal, I am hunted as a traitor. Abbas sat down heavily in his chair. His mind reeled, trying to process impossible information. Jinn, in his house. A jinn who refused to harm a child and was being punished for showing mercy. You're running because you showed mercy, Abbas said slowly. And you came to me to see if I would show you mercy in return. Yes. And if I had turned you away? Safia's eyes filled with tears again. Then I would have known that mercy was just a beautiful word, spoken but not practiced, and I would have stopped believing it existed at all. Outside, Abbas heard a sound like distant thunder, though the sky had been clear. Safia's head snapped toward the window, fear flashing across her face. They're coming, she whispered. They found me. I should leave. I should never have involved you. No, Abbas said firmly, surprising himself. You asked for sanctuary for one night. I gave my word. In this house you are under my protection. Safia stared at him. Old man, you don't understand. They will kill you to get to me. You are nothing to them. But I am something to Allah, Abbas interrupted. And if he brought you to my door, then there is a reason. You will stay, and we will face whatever comes together. For the first time, Safia smiled, a genuine smile that made her look almost human. You are either the bravest man I've ever met, or the most foolish. Perhaps both, Abbas replied, reaching for his prayer beads. Now, tell me everything, because if we're going to get through this night, I need to understand what we're facing. Outside, the thunder grew louder, and Abbas realized it wasn't thunder at all. It was the sound of wings, massive, powerful wings beating against the night sky. Safia moved to the window, her movements suddenly fluid and inhuman. She pulled the curtain aside slightly, and Abbas saw her entire body tense. "3 of them," she whispered. "Council enforcers. They can sense me now that I've revealed myself to you." She turned to Abbas, urgency in her voice. "Please, get your Quran. Start reciting Surah al-Baqarah. It won't stop them, but it will slow them down." Abbas's hands trembled as he retrieved his well-worn Quran from the shelf. He'd recited these verses thousands of times in his life, but never with such immediate, desperate purpose. As his voice began the familiar words, "Alif, Lam, Mim, this is the book about which there is no doubt." Safia closed her eyes, and Abbas saw her body shimmer slightly, as if she were made of heat waves. "What are you doing?" he asked, his recitation pausing. "Don't stop," she commanded. "Keep reciting. I'm placing protective barriers around your house. It won't hold them long, but it might make them hesitate." Abbas continued, his voice growing stronger despite his fear. The words of the Quran had always brought him peace, but tonight they felt like armor, like a shield being raised against the darkness outside. The lights in his house began to flicker. The temperature dropped suddenly, dramatically, until Abbas could see his own breath forming clouds in the air. The walls started to vibrate with a low frequency that made his teeth hurt. "They're testing the boundaries," Safia said, her hands pressed against the window frame. Strange symbols began to glow where her fingers touched, ancient script that looked like Arabic but wasn't, flowing like liquid light across the glass. Then the knocking began. 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the front door. Each one made the entire house shudder as if it might collapse. "Do not open it," Safia warned. "Do not speak to them. Do not even look through the peephole. They will try to manipulate you." Boom! 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 3 more knocks, harder this time. Abbas's family photos rattled on the walls. A crack appeared in the ceiling, sending dust drifting down like snow. Then came the voice, deep, resonant, beautiful in the way that dangerous things can be beautiful. "Safia bint Malik, you are charged with treason against the Council of the 7 Winds. Surrender yourself, and the human will be spared. Resist, and we will tear this structure apart brick by brick with him inside." Safia's jaw clenched, but she remained silent. The voice came again, changing, now speaking directly to Abbas. "Old man, why do you protect a traitor? Do you even know what she is? She is Jinn, made of fire, born before your ancestors walked the earth. She could kill you with a thought. She has no loyalty to humanity. Give her to us, and we will grant you anything you desire. Wealth, youth. We could even bring back your beloved Khadija." "Enough!" Abbas shouted, his voice cracking with emotion. He stood up, his entire body shaking with a mixture of fear and rage. "Do not speak my wife's name. Do not tempt me with impossible things. I gave this woman sanctuary, and I will not break my word." Silence followed his outburst. Even Safia looked at him with surprise. Then came laughter, cold, mirthless laughter from multiple voices outside. "Foolish human. Then you will share her fate." The house exploded with sound and motion. Windows rattled violently. The door buckled inward. The very air seemed to press down on them with crushing weight. Abbas fell to his knees, his Quran clutched to his chest. Safia threw herself in front of him, her arms spread wide. "Stop!" she screamed. "I'll surrender. Just don't hurt him. He knows nothing. He's innocent." "No." Abbas grabbed her arm with surprising strength. Don't you dare surrender because of me. They will kill you," Safia said, tears streaming down her face. "Why would you die for me? I'm nothing to you." "You're not nothing," Abbas said firmly. "You're a creation of Allah just like me. You chose mercy over cruelty. You protected a child when ordered to harm him. You are exactly the kind of soul worth protecting." Outside, the assault on the house suddenly stopped. The silence was somehow more terrifying than the noise had been. Then a new voice spoke, older, wiser, filled with power that made the air itself vibrate. "Interesting, very interesting. A human who truly believes what he preaches. Safia, your test has concluded, and you, old man, have just done something remarkable." Safia's eyes went wide. "Elder Musa?" "Yes, child. But I don't understand. The council sentenced me." "The council sentenced you to be tested," the voice corrected. "You refused to harm an innocent child, which showed mercy. But would you have mercy shown to you? Would you accept help from those you've been taught to see as lesser? And more importantly, would any human actually risk their life for one of our kind?" Abbas's mind struggled to process what he was hearing. This was a test. Every moment of your life is a test, old man, Elder Musa replied. But yes, this particular trial was arranged. Safia's refusal to harm the child was real. The consequences she faced were real. But we needed to know if she had truly learned the value of mercy, and if humans still possessed it in turn. The front door opened slowly, without anyone touching it. Standing in the doorway was an elderly Jinn, appearing as a dignified man with silver hair and eyes like molten gold. Two others flanked him, the enforcers, who now looked less threatening and more curious. "May I enter, Abbas al-Rashid?" Elder Musa asked formally. Yes, please," Abbas stammered, suddenly aware of how disheveled his small home looked. The elder Jinn entered, and his presence filled the room with an almost tangible sense of ancient wisdom. He looked at Safia with what might have been approval. Then he turned to Abbas. "Do you know," he said, "how rare it is to find a human who practices what they preach, who risks everything for mercy, who sees beyond the veil of form to the soul beneath?" Abbas didn't know how to respond. Elder Musa continued, "Safia was not the only one being tested tonight. You were too, and you both passed." Abbas sank back into his chair, his legs no longer willing to support him. His heart raced, and he wasn't sure if he should laugh or cry or simply faint from the overwhelming impossibility of everything that had just happened. "I don't understand," he finally managed to say. "If this was a test, why me?" Elder Musa moved with the grace of water flowing, seating himself across from Abbas with supernatural fluidity. "Not all tests are punishments, old man. Some are opportunities for elevation." He gestured to Safia, who stood frozen in the middle of the room, looking between Abbas and the elder with confusion and hope warring on her face. 3 months ago, Elder Musa began, Safia was commanded by a lesser Jinn, one who does not sit on the council, to possess a 6-year-old boy in Karachi. The purpose was to test the boy's family's faith, to see if they would turn to Allah or to superstition and sorcerers when faced with their child's affliction. Safia's voice was barely a whisper. "I went to the house. I entered the child's room, and I saw him sleeping, so innocent, so small. His mother had written verses from the Quran and hung them on his walls. She prayed tahajjud every night asking Allah to protect him, and I thought, how could I add to her suffering? How could I be the instrument of her test when she was already so devout?" "So you refused," Abbas said softly. "Yes, and the Jinn who commanded me was furious. He went to the council, claimed I was disobedient, rebellious, too sympathetic to humans. He demanded I be punished." Elder Musa nodded. "And that is when I intervened, because I saw something in Safia that we have not seen in our kind for many generations. True compassion, not pity, not contempt disguised as kindness, but genuine care for a creation different from herself." He turned his golden eyes to Abbas. "Just as I saw genuine mercy in you, Abbas al-Rashid. For 3 months, we have been watching you. We watched you feed cats when you barely had food for yourself. We watched you give your jacket to a beggar in winter. We watched you spend an entire day helping your neighbor's son fix his motorcycle, even though your back hurt. We watched you talk to your wife's photograph every night, promising her you'd keep being the good man she loved." Abbas felt his eyes filling with tears. The idea that he had been watched for months without knowing, that his private acts of kindness had been witnessed. "So you chose me to test Safia?" he asked. "We chose you both to test each other," Elder Musa corrected. Safia needed to know that mercy exists in human hearts, that she was right to spare that child, that compassion is not weakness. And you needed to know, he paused, letting the weight of the moment settle, you needed to know that you are seen, that your quiet acts of goodness matter, that the loneliness you feel every night, missing your wife, missing your son, wondering if your life has purpose anymore, is not the truth of your existence. The truth is that you are a light in a dark world, Abbas al-Rashid. And even we, the Jinn made of smokeless fire, are drawn to that light. Abbas couldn't hold back his tears anymore. For 3 years since Khadijah's death, he had felt invisible, forgotten, a lonely old man waiting to die. And now this ancient being was telling him that his life mattered, that he was seen, that his kindness had not gone unnoticed. Safia approached him slowly and knelt beside his chair. "I came to your street ready to give up," she said softly. "I was so tired of running, so convinced that mercy was just a word with no real meaning. But you proved me wrong. You risked everything for a stranger. For a creature you had every reason to fear." "I was terrified," Abbas admitted with a weak laugh. "I still am. Being brave doesn't mean not being afraid, Elder Musa said. It means acting with righteousness despite the fear. One of the enforcer Jinn, a tall, stern-looking being with eyes like storm clouds, stepped forward. The council has voted. Safia bint Malik is not only cleared of all charges, but is being elevated to the position of guardian. She will be responsible for protecting innocent children, humans and jinn alike, from harm. Safia's eyes went wide. Guardian? But I'm not worthy. You are more worthy than you know, Elder Musa said firmly. You saw what most of our kind refused to see, that humans are not lesser beings to be tested and tormented, but fellow creations deserving of dignity and respect. That is the quality of a true guardian. He stood, and the air around him seemed to shimmer with power. The council has also decided that this house, your home, Abbas al-Rashid, will be placed under permanent protection. No jinn, no evil, no harm will ever cross your threshold without your permission. You have earned our respect, old man, and our friendship. Abbas didn't know what to say. His small, modest home, protected by beings of smokeless fire, it seemed like something from a fairy tale. There is one more thing, Elder Musa said, his expression becoming grave. Safia's test is complete, but yours, Abbas, continues, because now you know we exist. You know the invisible world is real, tangible, present all around you. What will you do with this knowledge? It was a good question. Abbas looked at Safia, at the ancient elder, at the enforcers who had seemed so terrifying just minutes ago. What would he do? I will do, he said slowly, exactly what I have always done. Try to be a good man, show mercy, help those who need it. The only difference is that now I know my neighbors include more than just other humans. Elder Musa smiled, the first true smile Abbas had seen on his face. Perfect answer, Safia. You will visit this man regularly. Ensure his needs are met. He is under the council's protection now, which means he is family. Family, Safia repeated, the word seeming to mean everything to her. The elder Jinn moved toward the door, his enforcers following. But before leaving, he turned back one last time. Abbas al-Rashid, your wife Khadija, she is proud of you. I cannot bring her back, but I can tell you that she watches over you still, and she is pleased with the man you continue to be in her absence. And with that, they were gone, simply vanished, as if they had never been there at all. Except Safia remained. For a long moment, Abbas and Safia simply stared at each other in the sudden quiet of the house. The temperature slowly returned to normal. The cracks in the ceiling began to seal themselves with an otherworldly smoothness. Even the water that had pooled on the floor from Safia's clothes evaporated as if it had never existed. So, Abbas finally said, his voice hoarse, you're a guardian now. Safia nodded, still seeming stunned by the turn of events. I never imagined. I thought I would die tonight. Instead, I've been given the very duty I chose when I refused to harm that child. Allah works in mysterious ways, Abbas quoted, then added with a tired laugh, though I don't think I've ever experienced quite this level of mystery. Safia's appearance had shifted slightly. She still looked like the beautiful young woman who had been crying under the banyan tree, but now there was something different in her bearing, more confident, more purposeful. Her eyes no longer shifted colors, but remained a steady, warm amber. May I ask you something? She said, sitting carefully on the sofa. She no longer dripped water. In fact, she looked completely dry, as if the soaking wet clothing had been an illusion all along. After everything tonight, I think we're past formal boundaries, Abbas replied. Ask whatever you wish. Why did you really help me? Safia's question was direct, her gaze unwavering. When you first saw me under the tree, before you knew what I was, what made you stop? An old man alone hearing a strange woman crying in the dark. Most people would have kept walking, would have convinced themselves it wasn't their problem. Abbas was quiet for a moment, thinking. I heard Khadija, he said finally. Not literally, but in my heart. She used to say that every person in pain is a test from Allah. Will we see them, or will we look away? Will we help, or will we make excuses? When I heard you crying, I heard her voice asking me, what kind of man are you, Abbas, the kind who looks away? And you couldn't be that kind of man, Safia said softly. No, I couldn't. Not for her memory, not for my own soul. Safia wiped at her eyes, and Abbas realized with surprise that Jinn could cry real tears. Do you know how many humans I passed tonight before I reached your street? 47. I appeared to each one crying, asking for help. Some ran away, some laughed. Some called me insulting names, assuming I was a prostitute or a beggar. Some took out their phones to film me instead of helping. But you... She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. I'm nothing special, Abbas protested. You're wrong, Safia said firmly. You are exactly what's special, ordinary goodness. Not a saint, not a scholar, not someone seeking recognition. Just a man who chose kindness when it would have been easier not to. That's the rarest thing in all the worlds, human or jinn. Abbas felt his face flush with embarrassment. Well, I try. That's more than most do. They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Abbas noticed that his hands had stopped shaking. The terror of the past hour was fading, replaced by something else, a strange sense of peace, of rightness, as if a puzzle piece had clicked into place in his life. What happens now? He asked. You're a guardian. I assume that means you have duties, responsibilities. Will I ever see you again? Safia smiled. Elder Musa said I should visit you regularly, ensure your needs are met. Besides, her smile became slightly mischievous. I think I like you, Abbas al-Rashid. You're the first human who ever looked at me, at my true form, and didn't scream. I was too shocked to scream, Abbas admitted, making her laugh. Still counts. Abbas stood slowly, his joints creaking. The evening had exhausted him more than any physical labor could. I should sleep. It's past midnight, and I'm an old man who needs his rest. Do you need anything? A place to sleep? Safia shook her head. We don't sleep like humans do, but I will stay, if you don't mind. I'll watch over you tonight. Make sure the protection Elder Musa placed on your house is holding properly. Like a guardian angel? Abbas asked with a small smile. Like a guardian jinn, she corrected. Not quite the same, but close enough. Abbas moved toward his bedroom, then paused at the doorway. Safia, thank you for trusting me, for giving me the chance to do the right thing. I don't think you realize it, but you gave me a gift tonight. What gift? Purpose, Abbas said simply. For 3 years I felt like I was just waiting to die, going through the motions, but tonight I remembered what it feels like to matter, to make a difference, even a small one. You gave me that. Now it was Safia's turn to have tears in her eyes. Then we're even, because you reminded me that mercy is real. Abbas nodded and shuffled off to bed. As he lay down, he reached for Khadijah's photograph on the nightstand, his nightly ritual. Well, my love, he whispered to the image, you'll never believe the day I had. Although knowing you, you probably arranged the whole thing from wherever you are now. He could almost hear her laugh, that bright, musical laugh he missed so much. For the first time in 3 years, Abbas al-Rashid fell asleep feeling not lonely, but watched over, protected, valued. In the living room, Safia kept her vigil, her enhanced senses monitoring every corner of the property, ensuring no threat would disturb the old man's rest. And high above, in the realm where Jinn councils met and ancient decisions were made, Elder Musa smiled to himself. Well done, old man, he murmured to the night. Well done indeed. Abbas woke to the smell of chai brewing and something cooking, scents that hadn't filled his house since Khadijah died. For a disoriented moment, he thought he was dreaming, that his wife was in the kitchen making breakfast as she had for 47 years of their marriage. Then, the memories of the previous night came flooding back. The crying woman, the revelation, the Jinn council, Safia. He shuffled out of his bedroom to find Safia standing in his kitchen, somehow having prepared a full breakfast spread, parathas, omelets, fresh fruit, and steaming chai. She turned when she heard him, smiling with almost childlike pride. I haven't cooked for anyone in 87 years, she admitted. I hope it's edible. Abbas stared at the food, then at her, then back at the food. You're really still here? Did you think last night was a dream? I hoped it wasn't, Abbas said honestly, sitting at his small kitchen table. But I'm 70 years old. Sometimes I can't remember if something really happened or if I imagined it. Safia poured him chai with precise movements. It was real, all of it. And now we begin the harder part. Harder than facing a Jinn council and nearly having my house torn apart? Much harder, Safia said seriously, sitting across from him. Now you have to decide how to live with this knowledge, how to explain to your neighbors why there's sometimes a strange woman in your house, how to explain to your son when he visits, how to navigate a life where you know the invisible world is real and present and watching. Abbas took a sip of chai. It was perfect, exactly the way Khadijah used to make it, which made his eyes sting with tears. My son will think I've gone senile. Probably, Safia agreed, unless you want me to reveal myself to him too. No, Abbas said quickly, then paused. Actually, I don't know. Part of me wants Tariq to understand that the world is bigger and more wonderful than his engineering equations and business deals, but another part of me doesn't want to burden him with this. It's not a burden, Safia said gently. It's a gift, but I understand your hesitation. We can keep this between us for now. The morning passed in strange domestic comfort. Safia helped Abbas tend his garden, and he found himself explaining his rose cultivation techniques to a being who had existed for centuries. She, in turn, shared knowledge about plants from her perspective, how they communicate with the unseen world, how certain flowers attract jinn while others repel them. Jasmine, she said, touching the white blooms Khadija had planted decades ago, is beloved by my kind. It smells different to us, not just a fragrance, but like memories, peace, home. Khadija planted these, Abbas said softly. She said they reminded her of her childhood in Kashmir. She had good instincts. This garden is probably why so many jinn have watched over your house over the years. It's a beacon of beauty in a concrete world. Around mid-morning, Abbas's neighbor, Mrs. Qadir, a widow in her 60s, knocked on the door. Abbas felt a moment of panic, but Safia simply adjusted something about herself, and suddenly she looked completely ordinary. Not unattractive, just forgettable. A normal young woman who could be anyone's daughter or niece. "Abbas bhai," Mrs. Qadir called out. "I brought you some halwa puri. I made too much." She stopped when she saw Safia. "Oh, I didn't know you had company." "This is Safia," Abbas said, stumbling slightly over the words. "She's a distant relative, visiting from Karachi." "How wonderful," Mrs. Qadir beamed. "It's so good for you to have family visiting. You spend too much time alone. Please, both of you, take this food." After Mrs. Qadir left, Abbas slumped against the door. "I just lied to my neighbor. You told her I was a relative visiting from Karachi," Safia pointed out. "Technically, all of us, human and jinn, are related through creation. And I did come from Karachi, not a complete lie." "You're very good at rationalization," Abbas observed. "I've had 200 years to practice." But as the day wore on, Abbas found himself growing troubled. This was his test, he realized, the one Elder Musa had mentioned. How would he live with this knowledge? Would he become isolated, unable to relate to normal human concerns? Would he become arrogant, thinking himself special because Jinn had deemed him worthy? "You're thinking too much," Safia said that afternoon as they sat in the garden. "I can practically hear your thoughts spiraling." "How do I go back to normal?" Abbas asked. "How do I have tea with Mrs. Qadir and discuss the weather when I know there are Jinn councils making decisions about humanity? How do I call my son and listen to him complain about Dubai traffic when I've seen beings made of smokeless fire?" Safia was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you something about humans that always amazed me?" "Please. You have this remarkable ability to hold multiple truths at once. You can know that death is inevitable and still laugh at jokes. You can understand that the universe is vast beyond comprehension and still care deeply about whether your roses bloom. You can acknowledge that you're tiny and insignificant in the grand scheme of things and still believe that your individual actions matter." She leaned forward, her amber eyes intense. "That's not a weakness, Abbas. It's a superpower. You don't have to choose between the mundane and the magical. You can hold both, have tea with Mrs. Qadir, and know about Jinn councils. Call your son and remember what you've seen. The trick is not to let one diminish the other." Abbas absorbed her words. "You're wiser than you look." "I'm 243 years old," Safia said with a laugh. "I would hope I've picked up some wisdom along the way." That evening, as Abbas sat for Maghrib prayer, Safia stood respectfully to the side. After he finished, she asked, "Would you mind if I prayed too? I haven't prayed in congregation, even with a human, in a very long time." "Please," Abbas gestured, and so they prayed together. An old man and a jinn, both bowing before the same creator, both seeking guidance, both grateful for the mercy they'd been shown. After prayer, Abbas's phone rang. It was Tariq. "Abba, how are you? I'm sorry I haven't called all week. Work has been crazy." "I'm fine, beta," Abbas said, and realized with surprise that it was true. "Actually, I'm better than fine. I've had the most interesting week." As he talked to his son about nothing particularly important, Tariq's work project, his children's school activities, the Dubai heat, Abbas caught Safia's eye. She smiled and nodded approvingly. Multiple truths, the mundane and the magical, both real, both important. "Abba, are you sure you're okay?" Tariq asked. "You sound different, happier." I am happier, Abbas said honestly. I'll tell you why when you visit next month. That's another thing, I'm actually going to try to come next week. I have a conference in Lahore, can I stay with you? Abbas glanced at Safia, who mouthed, I'll make myself scarce. Of course, Abbas told his son, I'd love to see you. After hanging up, Abbas felt something he hadn't felt in years, anticipation for the future, not just existing day to day, but actually looking forward to what came next. You passed, Safia said softly. Passed what? The test. The real one. You're going to be okay, Abbas al-Rashid. You're going to live with this knowledge without letting it consume you or isolate you. You're going to stay connected to your human life while acknowledging the larger reality. That's actually quite rare. I had a good teacher, Abbas said, gesturing to her. No, Safia corrected gently. You already knew. I just reminded you. 3 days later, everything changed again. Abbas was in his garden, deadheading roses, when Safia appeared suddenly, materializing in her true form, eyes blazing with urgency, water dripping from her form, despite the dry afternoon. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Abbas set down his pruning shears carefully, his heart already beginning to race. What kind of problem? The Jinn, who originally commanded me to possess that child, his name is Rashad. He's never accepted the council's decision to clear me. He's been gathering support from other Jinn who believe the council is too soft on those who show mercy to humans. And now, she paused, her expression pained. Now what? Abbas prompted. Now he's planning to target you, to prove that humans aren't worth protecting. He's going to stage an attack, make it look like random violence, but he'll be possessing the attackers. If you're killed, he'll claim it proves that the council was wrong to protect you, that humans are too weak to deserve our mercy. Abbas felt cold despite the afternoon heat. When? Tomorrow night. He's found 3 young men, drug addicts, angry at the world, easy to manipulate. He'll possess them and send them here. The council's protection on your house will stop him from entering directly. But these will be human bodies. The protection doesn't extend to humans with free will, even if they're being influenced. So what do I do? Call the police? Leave? Safia's expression became even more troubled. There's another option. Elder Musa sent me a message. The council is willing to relocate you, give you a new identity, a new home, far from here where Rashad can't find you. You'd be safe. But, Abbas could hear the unspoken caveat in her voice, but you'd have to leave everything. Your home, your neighbors. Your son would be told you died peacefully in your sleep. You'd never see him or your grandchildren again. You'd be erased from your human life. Abbas sat down heavily on his garden bench. They're asking me to choose. My life or my life? Yes, Safia said miserably, and I hate that this is happening. I brought this danger to you. If you'd never helped me— Don't, Abbas interrupted firmly. Don't you dare suggest I should regret showing you mercy. That's exactly what Rashad wants, for me to regret kindness, to prove that mercy is foolish. So what will you do? Abbas looked at his garden. 43 years of cultivation, Khadija's jasmine, roses he'd planted when Tariq was born. He looked at his small house, every corner filled with memories. He thought of Mrs. Qadir bringing him food, of the neighborhood children who called him kind uncle, of his son who was planning to visit next week. Then he thought of the 6-year-old boy Safia had refused to possess, the child who still slept safely because she had chosen mercy over obedience. I'm staying, Abbas said quietly. Abbas, they'll kill you. Maybe, he acknowledged. Or maybe there's another way. Tell me, if these men attack me while possessed and I defend myself using Quranic verses and prayer, would that weaken Rashad's hold on them? Safia's eyes widened. Yes. Possession isn't absolute. It requires the human's will to be weakened or compromised. Strong faith can break it. But Abbas, you're 70 years old, 3 aggressive men. Even if you can weaken the possession, I won't be fighting them, Abbas said. I'll be fighting for them, fighting to free them from Rashad's influence. That's impossible. You're not a trained exorcist or a scholar. No, Abbas agreed. I'm just an old man who knows that mercy is stronger than violence. That faith is more powerful than fear, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to run. Safia stared at him. You're insane. Probably, Abbas smiled, but I'm also right. Think about it. If I run, Rashad wins. He proves that humans are weak, that protecting them is pointless. But if I stay and face this with nothing but faith and prayer, if I can free those men from his influence, that proves mercy has power, that humans are worth protecting. And if you die? Then I die doing the right thing, Abbas said simply. I've lived a good life, Sophia. I've loved and been loved. I've raised a good son. I've tried to be kind. If this is how my story ends, standing against cruelty, protecting others even if I can't protect myself, then I can face Allah with a clear conscience. Safia sat beside him on the bench, and for a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, she said, I can't let you face this alone. The council. I don't care what the council says, Safia interrupted fiercely. You risked everything for me. I will do the same for you. If Rashad wants to target you, he'll have to go through me first. You could lose your position as guardian, Abbas warned. Some things are more important than position, Safia said, echoing his own logic back to him. Abbas took her hand. It felt solid, real, warm, despite her being made of smokeless fire. Then we face this together. Together, she agreed. That night they prepared. Abbas spent hours in prayer, reciting every protective surah he knew. Safia placed additional barriers around the property, not to keep the attackers out, that would violate their free will, but to contain Rashad's influence, to make it harder for him to maintain possession once inside the property lines. When they come, Safia instructed, don't be afraid. Fear will weaken your prayers. Trust in Allah, trust in your faith, and keep reciting. No matter what happens, keep reciting. I will, Abbas promised. As the sun set the next evening, they waited. Abbas sat in his garden, Quran open in his lap. Safia stood nearby in her true form, visible only to him, her presence a comfort and a reminder that he wasn't alone. The neighborhood grew quiet. Children were called inside for dinner. The muezzin's call echoed from the nearby mosque. Normal life continuing on, unaware of the battle about to unfold. And then, as the last light faded from the sky, they came. 3 young men, walking in perfect unison, their eyes vacant and wrong, their movements jerky like poorly controlled puppets. Behind them, invisible to normal human sight, was Rashad, a massive jinn with eyes like burning coals, his form constantly shifting between solid and smoke. Hello, old man. Rashad's voice came from all 3 men at once, a discordant chorus. Ready to die? Abbas stood slowly, his legs steady despite his fear. He opened his mouth and began to recite, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Qul huwa Allahu Ahad. The words of Surah Al-Ikhlas flowed from him, and he saw the men flinch, saw Rashad's form waver slightly. Your prayers won't save you, Rashad snarled, but there was uncertainty in his voice now. They're not to save me, Abbas replied calmly. They're to save them, and the real battle began. The 3 possessed men lunged forward in unison, their movement still jerky and unnatural, but their intent clear, violence. Abbas didn't run. He stood his ground in his garden, surrounded by Khadija's jasmine and his beloved roses, and kept reciting, Allahu la ilaha illahu, al-hayyul qayyum. The words of Ayat al-Kursi poured from him, each syllable a hammer blow against Rashad's control. Safia materialized between Abbas and the attackers, her form exploding into something magnificent and terrible, a jinn of water in her full glory, towering and powerful, her voice resonating with authority. Rashad, you violate sacred law. These humans are under council protection. The council is weak, Rashad's voice roared from the 3 men. They've forgotten what we are, beings of fire superior to clay. This old fool is nothing. This old fool, Safia countered, has more courage in his frail body than you have in your entire existence. The first attacker swung a blade, a kitchen knife he'd grabbed from somewhere, but his hand shook violently, fighting the possession. Abbas saw the man's eyes, saw the terror in them, the consciousness trapped beneath Rashad's control. You are not a murderer, Abbas said directly to the young man, his voice gentle despite the danger. Whatever mistakes you've made, whatever pain you're in, you are not this. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. Remember that. Remember who you are. The man's hand froze mid-swing. Sweat poured down his face as he fought internally, his own will struggling against Rashad's possession. Obey me! Rashad's voice thundered from all 3 simultaneously. But Abbas continued, his voice growing stronger. You are human beings created by Allah with dignity and free will. No creature, no matter how powerful, can truly control you if you don't let them. Fight. Remember who you are. The second attacker, a young man who couldn't have been more than 20, fell to his knees, his hands clutching his head. Get out. Get out of my head, he moaned. Safia's form rippled with power, as she directed her own influence at Rashad, not attacking him directly, but rather weakening his hold on the humans. See how they resist you? See how fragile your control is when faced with faith and free will? Rashad's massive form flickered with rage. You betray your own kind for these cattle? They're not cattle, Safia said firmly. They're our equals in Allah's sight. Different, yes, made of clay while we are fire, but equals nonetheless. The garden had become a battlefield of invisible forces, jinn power clashing, prayers resonating, human wills struggling to break free. Abbas's neighbors, if they were watching, would only see 3 young men seeming to have seizures in an old man's garden while he recited Quran over them. But to spiritual sight it was magnificent and terrible, light against darkness, mercy against cruelty, faith against possession. The third attacker suddenly screamed and collapsed, Rashad's hold on him breaking completely. The young man curled into a fetal position, sobbing, I'm sorry, I didn't want to. He made me. You're free now, Abbas said gently, even as the other 2 still fought. You're free. Rashad, realizing he was losing control, made a desperate move. He abandoned the 2 struggling humans and poured all his power into the first attacker, the one with the knife, trying to force him to strike before the possession could be broken. The man's arm jerked forward, blade aimed at Abbas's chest, but Safia was faster. She solidified her form between them, and the blade passed through her watery body harmlessly. No! She roared, her voice shaking the very foundations of the house. I will not let you do this. You're willing to die for clay? Rashad snarled in disbelief. I'm willing to die for a friend, Safia replied. For mercy, for what's right. You've forgotten those concepts, Rashad. You've let pride and arrogance consume you. You're the one who's betrayed what we should be. Abbas saw his opportunity. While Rashad was focused on Safia, fully manifested and vulnerable, Abbas placed his hand on the shoulder of the man with the knife and spoke directly to him. Son, listen to me. Listen to my voice. Your name is Ahmed. You're 23 years old. Your mother prays for you every night. You made mistakes, yes, you got involved with drugs, with bad people. But you are not a killer. You are better than this. Come back to yourself. How did Abbas know these things? He didn't. But somehow in that moment of crisis, the words came to him with certainty, as if whispered by a divine source. The man, Ahmed, froze. His eyes, which had been vacant and wrong, suddenly focused. My mother. She prays for you, Abbas repeated. Every night at Tahajjud. She hasn't given up on you. Don't give up on yourself. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah. You are His creation, blessed with free will. Use it. Choose yourself. Choose life. Tears began streaming down Ahmed's face. The knife fell from his hand. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I couldn't control. You're free now, Abbas said. You're free. And with that, Rashad's last connection broke. The jinn's form exploded in rage and frustration, his power scattering into smoke and fury. This isn't over, his voice echoed as he fled. The council will hear of this. You've both violated. The council, came a new voice, powerful, ancient, unmistakable, is already here. Elder Musa materialized in the garden, along with the 2 enforcers, but they weren't alone. Behind them appeared a dozen more jinn, all radiating authority and power, the full council of 7 winds. Rashad, Elder Musa said coldly, you are the one who has violated sacred law. You possessed humans to commit violence. You targeted one under council protection, and most damningly, you did it to prove a point born of pride and prejudice. The scattered smoke that was Rashad tried to flee, but the enforcers moved with lightning speed, containing him in a prison of pure force. Your punishment will be decided at formal trial, one of the council members declared, but you will not threaten humans or jinn again. Elder Musa turned to Abbas and Safia. The old human and the jinn guardian still stood side by side, both exhausted but unbroken. What you 2 did tonight, the elder said softly, will be remembered. You, Abbas al-Rashid, faced death with nothing but faith. You freed 3 souls from possession through sheer conviction. And you, Safia, risked everything, your position, your existence, to protect one human life. He looked at the 3 young men, Ahmed and his 2 companions, all conscious now, all horrified by what they'd been forced to do. These 3 will be taken into custody by human authorities. They broke into this property with intent to harm, but they will be given fair treatment, will receive help for their addictions, and will remember this night as the moment they were given a second chance. Sometimes, Elder Musa added, glancing meaningfully at Rashad's contained form, mercy requires consequences, but those consequences should rehabilitate, not merely punish. Abbas nodded weakly, and then, quite suddenly, his legs gave out. The adrenaline that had sustained him evaporated all at once, and he collapsed. Safia caught him before he hit the ground, her form immediately shifting to support his weight. "Abbas, stay with me." "I'm fine," he mumbled, though clearly he wasn't. "Just need to rest. Get him inside," Elder Musa ordered. "Safia, you will care for him. He's earned our eternal gratitude." As Safia carried Abbas into his house, a jinn carrying a human with infinite gentleness, the council dealt with the aftermath. The three young men were restored fully to themselves, their memories adjusted just enough to spare them the trauma of knowing they'd been possessed, and authorities were subtly guided to the scene. Inside, Safia laid Abbas on his bed and sat beside him, holding his hand as his breathing gradually slowed from panicked gasps to normal rhythm. "You saved them," she whispered. "You saved all three of those men. You broke Rashad's possession through nothing but faith and compassion." "We saved them," Abbas corrected weakly. "You and me, together." "Together," Safia agreed, tears streaming down her face. Abbas closed his eyes, utterly exhausted. "Did I do good, Khadija?" he murmured, half delirious. "Would you be proud?" Safia's voice was gentle. "She is proud, Abbas. She's watching, and she is so proud." And for a moment, just a brief, impossible moment, the room filled with the scent of jasmine, stronger than any flower could produce. Abbas smiled in his half-sleep, and Safia knew Khadija had found a way to answer. The autumn sun filtered through the windows of Abbas's house as he sat at his kitchen table, watching Safia teach his grandson how to make chai. Tariq had come to visit with his whole family, and what was meant to be a weekend had turned into a week-long stay. 3 months had passed since the night of the attack. 3 months since Abbas al-Rashid had become an unlikely hero in both the human and jinn worlds. No, Hamza," Safia laughed, gently correcting the 8-year-old's technique. "You have to let the tea brew longer or it'll be too weak. Like this, see?" "Safia makes the best chai in the world," Hamza declared loyally. From the living room, Abbas heard his son's voice. "Abba, are you sure you're okay with us staying so long? We can get a hotel." "Nonsense," Abbas called back. "Having family here is the greatest blessing. Besides, Safia loves having people to cook for." It had taken some careful explanation to help Tariq understand who Safia was and why she was living in his father's house. Not the full truth, that would have been too much, but a version of it. Safia was a young woman who had been in trouble, whom Abbas had helped, and who had now become like family. She helped around the house, kept him company, and in return, he gave her a safe place to stay. Tariq, seeing how happy his father seemed, how the loneliness that had haunted him for years had evaporated, didn't ask too many questions. What Tariq didn't know was that Safia had become something of a legend among the jinn, the guardian who had stood against one of their own to protect a human. Word had spread through the invisible world, and the result was that Abbas's house had become a neutral ground, a place where humans and jinn could interact peacefully. It started small. A young jinn, barely 50 years old, had appeared one evening asking if the stories were true. Had a human really broken possession through faith alone? Abbas, after getting over his surprise, had invited the curious jinn in for tea and conversation. Then came others. Jinn who were tired of the old antagonisms between their kind and humans. Jinn who believed, as Safia did, that mercy and coexistence were possible. Even some human scholars who had spent their lives studying the Islamic texts about jinn and wanted to meet them face to face. Abbas's modest home in Lahore had become, improbably, a bridge between worlds. "Dadu!" His granddaughter Amina ran into the kitchen. "Can we see the garden? Uncle Zahir said he'd show us the special flowers." Abbas smiled. Uncle Zahir was a jinn of air, nearly 400 years old, who had taken it upon himself to teach Abbas's grandchildren about the natural world from a jinn perspective. Tariq thought Zahir was just an eccentric neighbor who knew a lot about plants. "Go ahead, but stay where I can see you," Abbas called after them. Safia brought him a fresh cup of chai and sat beside him. "You've created something remarkable here," she said softly. "Even Elder Musa is impressed. He told me yesterday that the council is considering establishing more places like this, neutral grounds, where our kinds can learn about each other." "I didn't mean to start a movement," Abbas protested. I just helped one person who needed it. That's how every movement starts, Safia replied. One person choosing mercy when it would be easier not to. Through the window, Abbas watched his grandchildren playing in the garden, while Zahir, invisible to them but very much present, caused flowers to bloom out of season, much to the children's delighted confusion. Has there been any word about Rashad? Abbas asked. Safia's expression darkened slightly. He was tried by the full council, found guilty of possession, attempted murder, and inciting division. He's been bound, unable to interact with either humans or jinn, for the next century. It's one of our harshest punishments. Do you think he'll learn from it? I don't know, Safia admitted. Some beings are too consumed by pride to change, but at least he can't hurt anyone for 100 years. That evening, after Tariq's family had gone to bed, Abbas sat in his garden as he always did. The night air was cool, perfumed with jasmine, some real, some perhaps conjured by whatever jinn were keeping watch. Safia joined him, visible in her true form now that the humans were asleep. Do you ever regret it? She asked. The quiet life you had before all this? Abbas thought about it seriously. His life before had been so simple, lonely, but simple. Now his home was full of activity, human and otherwise. His days were filled with unexpected visitors, strange conversations, and the constant awareness that the world was far more complex than he'd ever imagined. No, he said finally. I don't regret it. Khadija used to say that a comfortable life isn't the same as a meaningful life. I was comfortable before, but I wasn't alive. Not really. Now, every day is an adventure. Every day I learn something new. Every day I make a difference, even if it's small. It's not small, Safia said firmly. You've changed both our worlds, Abbas. Humans who come here leave with less fear of the unseen. Jinn who visit leave with more respect for humanity. You're building something that will outlast both of us. I won't last much longer, Abbas said matter-of-factly. I'm 70 years old. Maybe I have another 10 years if I'm lucky. Don't talk like that. It's not morbid, it's realistic, Abbas interrupted gently. And I'm at peace with it. I've lived well, I've loved deeply, I've tried to be good. And these last few months, knowing you, meeting others from your world, seeing my grandchildren play in a garden watched over by beings of smokeless fire, these have been the richest months of my life. Safia leaned her head on his shoulder, a gesture of affection that transcended their different natures. When the time comes, she said quietly, I'll be there. You won't be alone. I know, Abbas replied, and that's more than most people get. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky. Somewhere in the garden, a jinn child played with the neighborhood cats. Inside the house, Abbas's grandson dreamed of flowers that bloomed in impossible colors. And across the city, across the country, across the world, other humans and jinn were beginning to wonder. If an old man in Lahore could bridge two worlds, what else was possible? The answer, Abbas thought with satisfaction, was anything. Absolutely anything. Abbas al-Rashid passed away peacefully 2 years later, on a cool autumn morning much like the one when Safia had first appeared crying under the banyan tree. He died in his sleep, surrounded by family, both human and jinn, his final breaths accompanied by the recitation of Surah Yasin. Safia kept her promise. She was there, holding his hand, as his soul departed. But this story isn't about his death, it's about what he left behind. The house in Lahore still stands, maintained now by a trust established by Tariq, who after his father's death finally learned the full truth about Safia and the jinn world. The trust operates it as a cultural center dedicated to interfaith dialogue and, though it's not publicly acknowledged, as a meeting place for the curious from both worlds. Safia still serves as guardian, but now she has something else. A mission inspired by Abbas. She travels the world finding humans and jinn who need healing, who need to see that mercy exists, that coexistence is possible. She carries with her a small, worn photograph of Abbas, Khadija, and young Tariq, a reminder of the family that adopted her, the human who changed her. The 3 young men who were possessed that night, Ahmed and his companions, all completed rehabilitation. Ahmed now runs a community center in Karachi, helping addicts recover. He doesn't remember being possessed, but he remembers an old man who saw him as human when he couldn't see it himself. That memory shaped the rest of his life. Elder Musa still leads the Council of 7 Winds, but the council itself has changed. More voices advocating for peaceful coexistence with humans, more young jinn choosing mercy over dominance. It's a slow change, but it's happening. And in mosques and homes around the world, a new story has entered the oral tradition, the story of Abbas al-Rashid, the kind old man who proved that faith isn't just about belief, but about action, that mercy isn't weakness, but strength, that one person, armed with nothing but conviction and compassion, can change worlds. What can we learn from Abbas's story? First, every act of kindness matters, even when you think no one is watching. Abbas had no idea that helping a crying stranger would lead to any of this. He just did what he thought was right. Your smallest act of mercy might be someone's lifeline. Second, fear and faith are not opposites. Abbas was terrified multiple times, facing Jinn, facing possessed attackers, facing the unknown. But he acted with righteousness despite the fear. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing right action in its presence. Third, true strength lies in mercy. Rashad was powerful, ancient and fierce, but he lost. Abbas was old, frail and armed only with faith, but he won. Why? Because mercy has a power that violence can never match. Compassion breaks chains that force cannot. Fourth, different doesn't mean lesser. Humans and jinn are fundamentally different, made of different elements, existing in different ways. But different doesn't imply hierarchy. We are all Allah's creation, all deserving of dignity and respect. Finally, your life is never meaningless. Abbas thought he was just an old man waiting to die. Instead, he became a bridge between worlds, a teacher to both humans and jinn, a legend in multiple realms. You never know the full impact of your existence. Live as if every moment matters, because it does. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "None of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself." Abbas al-Rashid lived that teaching. He loved Sophia, a being completely unlike himself. With the same fierce protectiveness he'd have shown his own daughter. He fought for 3 possessed young men he'd never met with the same conviction he'd have fought for his own son. And that love, that mercy, that recognition of shared dignity despite difference, that changed everything. So I ask you now, how will you live? Will you turn away from the crying stranger because helping might be inconvenient or frightening? Will you judge those who are different from you as lesser? Or will you be like Abbas, imperfect, frightened, ordinary in every way except one, choosing mercy every single time? The world needs more people like Abbas al-Rashid, not heroes, not saints, just ordinary people making the extraordinary choice to be kind. Before you go, please subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment telling me, what act of mercy will you choose today? Because somewhere, right now, a jinn is watching. A soul is in need. An opportunity for mercy is presenting itself. The question is, will you see it? And if you do, will you have the courage to act? Assalamu alaikum. May peace and mercy be upon you all, and may we all, human and jinn alike, learn to see each other with eyes of compassion.